automatically get it.
It is done.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for having us again. So my name is Catherine Mesmer, and I'm a marketing rep from Centers for Rehab Services. With me today, I have Erica Fisher. She's one of our physical therapists from our Squirrel Hill location. And we are going, or I should say she's going to give a posture presentation. Just with everything going on, we thought this was a great topic for people working from home still, getting back to work, finding themselves more at a computer-based kind of situation. So without further ado, I'm going to let Erica kind of introduce herself and then take over the meeting.
Hi, 1 second. I am Erica Fisher. I'm a physical therapist at CRS in Squirrel Hill, and I work a lot with orthopedic injuries like head, neck, shoulders, knees, and I also specialize in temporomandibular joint pain, basically these joints in there, your jaw. And so without further ado, I'm going to set up sharing my screen. Oh, it's already sharing, am I correct? Is that sharing properly?
I don't see I had it before, I don't see the screen now.
Let me try that again. There we are.
There you go, yep. Awesome.
There we go. So the topic today, talking about ergonomics at the desk, proper posture. So without further ado, so basically, why are we talking about this? Much like you said earlier, people are working from home, working from work, and both of those have their pros and cons. And so what does proper posture mean to this? Well, there's this study that I was looking at, and there's been a number of studies that show this, that really poor posture does relate to back pain and neck pain. We've got here all these interesting postures that these college students take on when studying, and the ones where they have their feet crossed, their feet propped up, and other strange postures are more related to back and neck pain just at the time when they were asking. So it makes a huge difference. So I'm just going to start talking about some of the factors that make good and bad posture. First of all, there's foot positioning. Now, you see with the first picture, the young lady's feet are curled under her chair, and that causes her to have more of a curled back. There's more of an arch, and over time that can cause some back pain. The second one, she has her feet all propped up and her back's curved a little bit the other way. That causes back pain too. So the ideal for your feet positioning is going to be having your feet flat on the floor. So you can sit up nice and straight, a gentle natural curve in your lower back, and looking straight ahead at your monitor. Now, I know that an adjustable chair is ideal, but that does not always happen. Sometimes you might need to have a book or a box under your feet in order to touch the floor properly. So thinking on from there, thinking about laptops. I think pretty much everyone with Zoom calls and, just long hours sitting in front of a laptop, especially at home, you kind of end up having the posture that she shows right here. You end up with your head forward, hunched over, kind of bending over closely to look at the screen. Now, the first thing I wanted to put on about this is sometimes if you're having a hard time seeing the screen, absolutely think about getting glasses. Check out your prescription, make sure that you can see the screen properly, and that's not the issue. But beyond that, thinking about making your laptop more like a desktop. One tip would be to use a USB or wireless or Bluetooth keyboard. That way you can separate the keyboard from the monitor so that the monitor can be appropriately positioned at the same time as your keyboard is. Now, once you've got your keyboard separate from the monitor, You can prop it up a little bit. You can see she has the laptop itself sitting on a few books so that it's a little closer to that eye level. That's ideal. And her hands are sitting at the keyboard, relaxed. And so, as this says here, the ideal of a monitor level should be at about eye level or a little lower. So when your monitor is too low, you end up looking down, and that's uncomfortable to the neck. And when you find yourself looking up, that ends up causing pain as well. So you want to avoid that, keeping the monitor eye level or a bit lower. And you can see that her shoulders are relaxed at her side, that her arms can easily reach the keyboard without stretching, and that her wrists are relaxed. Everything is just very supported. Going on from there, thinking about a standing desk. So if it's too low, again, you're going to end up bending forward at the waist, and that's going to fatigue you in different ways. And you're going to notice that I'm talking a lot about back support. And part of this is because the way your back is positioned really has a big effect on how long you can sit in a position or stand in a position without your back bothering you. So beyond there, if your standing desk is too high, it can end up with you having your shoulders shrugged up, your wrists are at a weird place, and it just ends up uncomfortable after a while. So the standing desk, you really want to have it, again, your shoulders relaxed. Now this monitor is a little unideal. You would want it higher, but the fact that she's able to gaze downward at it, as opposed to hunching forward towards it, makes it so it's okay. So at home, a lot of people end up doing the couch thing, the lounge chair thing. In the end, it's probably not going to be a good idea. Sitting like that for a while when you're, maybe looking at your emails for a minute, taking a break, what have you, it's going to be fine. But a lot of the time, if you spend more than 5-10 minutes in a position like this, the neck ends up cranked up, the shoulders are in an odd position, and that back isn't supported again. So the wrists. I'm sure everyone's heard of carpal tunnel syndrome, and that's basically the idea of the nerves in the wrists being pinched or not being able to send the signal to your hands properly just because of the positioning of your wrist. Now, the first picture, her wrists are cranked up and rested on the table, and it's hard. The second one, her fingers are curled and her wrists are kind of cocked down. Back to the ideal idea, having those wrists neutral. So in that case, you're not, shortening any muscles, you're not lessening the space where that nerve gets to travel through, and you get to be most comfortable. And so the other position, that hunched forward position, this does other things that also cause discomfort. So basically, if you find yourself hunching forward, you can see that the pectoral muscles, the area around her chest, is a little bit squished in. When squished in like that, those pectoral muscles, the chest muscles, really get shortened for long term in some ways if you're sitting there for hours. And then when you go to sit up, you feel really tight and uncomfortable. Beyond that, that's kind of an area where nerves go through. And some of the symptoms that people sit there and say, oh, I must have carpal tunnel syndrome from my wrists, can come from rounded shoulders, hunched up shoulders, not allowing those nerve signals to go through actually up at the top by the shoulders instead of the problem being down by the wrists. So making sure that those shoulders are back, the head is upright, absolutely helps that out. Another thing is propping up the head. It's pretty comfortable to sit with your head propped for a while, but that can cause some serious problems in the long run if you have a singular position you stick in for a long while. Much like the other posture, that hunching forward can cause some tightness in the chest, but also the pressure of your hand on your jaw absolutely can stress the jaw joint, the temporomandibular joint. And by making that uneven pressure on one side of your jaw and not the other, it can lead to tightening of the muscles, jaw pain, and because you're tilted to one side rather than the other, it can cause uneven tightness in your neck as well. I'm sure people have heard about, and people have gotten away from using the phone held up against their shoulders, held in place by their shoulder, for in favor of having headsets and things like that. But this causes a similar problem. So I'm going to pop back a few pictures earlier and take a quick notice here at the general correct positioning, just to go over that. So you're sitting in a chair upright, your feet on the floor, your shoulders are relaxed, and you can reach the keyboard relatively easily, not reaching forward, not hunching forward. Your head can be upright, your head's not forward. And you can gaze at the screen straight ahead or just a little bit down. And your back is supported by a little bit of lumbar support from your chair, helping you not have to put quite as much effort into sitting in a good position. All right, going forward again. Oopsies. So taking breaks. This ends up being a really important thing, something you had mentioned earlier. Taking breaks for every hour of work, 5 minutes of movement at least, because if you're sitting in 1 hour for too long, you end up, number one, pretty much nobody can sit with really good posture for a long time without starting to slouch a little bit, and you want to be able to check in with yourself every once in a while. Now, beyond that, ideally, you would want to move around every 20 to 30 minutes and really maybe even just get up, get a glass of water, stand and stretch, and use a timer sometimes. If you aren't able to remember to get up on your own, put a timer on your phone so it buzzes at you when you need to get up and move. And so kind of wanted to start by introducing with that slideshow some posture ideas, but then I wanted to go on and really exemplify those things in person with examples. And absolutely feel free to jump in, ask questions, consider your specific desk setup. And sometimes getting your desk right does take creativity, kind of like propping up your monitor on books and cracker boxes, which was actually what they were using in the picture. But let me get back up here so you can see me. I'm going to rearrange my setup so that the camera can see my desk. My very makeshift desk in a makeshift workroom. There we are. Easier said than done. I thought this was going to be easy. I tried it out earlier. 1 second. All right. Okay. Sorry about this. I don't have quite as good of a setup as I thought I did. It worked a bit ago, and now it will not. Ah, there, that works now.
There we go.
There. Okay, so basically, I have my desk here. So, I used one of my props to prop up the monitor, so give me 30 seconds.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm great.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much for offering this.
Oh, no problem. Just quick, I know you jumped in late while Erica's finishing up. My name is Catherine, and I'm a marketing rep for Centers for Rehab Services. And then with us, Erica Fisher is doing the demonstration now. So she went through her slides. So if you have any questions, once she's finished, please feel free. We can always pull those back up and then quickly run through those if you'd like.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and absolutely feel free to jump in with any questions or thoughts or particulars to your situation. So first of all, thinking about the posture and what we were looking at, this is going to be a shout out moment for everyone. Say things, join in. So first of all, I'm going to sit and you're going to tell me what's wrong with how I'm sitting.
Hunched back. Neck looks uncomfortable.
And so, yeah, that's one of the things that makes a huge difference. One of the things that I often find myself working with people is something called a forward head posture. And that's exactly what this is. You see the people, the end picture of the forward head posture is that person who's permanently like this and really can't straighten up. But that starts young. That starts with people who never really ever sit upright. And then they end up having a situation where these muscles at the front of their neck get very tight. And it just encourages that. So when you find yourself sitting forward, got some couple stretches that you can do that really helps that out. So you guys can feel free to try these on your own. These are stretches to address that forward head. This first one is for the muscle called the SCM or sternocleidomastoid. It goes from up here by the bottom of the ears down to the collarbone. You press your hands at the side, tilt your head away, and look towards the side you're trying to stretch. Kind of reminds me of those like pious ladies in Renaissance paintings. Like to hold the stretch for about 10 seconds. And then switch sides. Getting a little pressure, tilting the head away, and rotating towards. All right. Another one for that forward head is a chin tuck. Now, with any of these exercises, of course, if it causes pain to do it, don't do it because they're supposed to feel good. They're supposed to give you a sense of stretch and relaxation, but not every exercise is for everyone. So that said, the next one's a chin tuck. Basically, give yourself a double chin and then relax. This one's something that you can do maybe 5 to 10 times. If you find yourself jutting your head forward, going in the opposite direction.
Now, Erica, when I'm doing this, should I feel it in a particular spot?
Oftentimes, you almost feel a lengthening at the back of your neck,
Okay.
but it shouldn't be straining. If you feel like you're straining, be a little more subtle with it. If your neck isn't as flexible, sometimes it doesn't go as far. And some people find that uncomfortable overall. And so you just wouldn't do that exercise.
Cool.
And so one last one I really like to do for the upper body that you can do just sitting at the desk is rotating your hands out and coming back to the middle. Now the emphasis on this one is these shoulder blades in the back. You're not raising your shoulders. You're drawing them gently backwards, bringing your shoulder blades to kind of, one of my patients used to say she was pinching the orange behind her shoulder blades. So squeezing back and coming forward. And the full motion is getting that gentle squeeze while you rotate your arms open, feeling that open chest. You can also pair it with some breathing so that you're Breathing in, breathing out. And breathing exercises can be really relaxing part of the way through the day, especially if you're someone who finds yourself clenching their teeth or, bearing up with stress. Taking a moment to breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. You really can't clench your teeth when you're breathing, and it's really hard to really tense up when you're taking some nice deep breaths and stretching. So it can often break a cycle, even if you don't have a chance to kind of stand up and move around. Any questions about those?
How often would you recommend, I think you said at the beginning, but how often would you recommend doing those?
I would say if you're sitting at a desk for a long day, ideally you'd want to move around at least, every 30 minutes or so. But if maybe every once in an hour, you just paused and did a little bit of a stretch, maybe not every stretch, just moved. And all you really need, even just a nice above the head stretch, is actually a nice one too. Stretching at the flanks, getting all this that you hunched forward, really anything. Doesn't have to be specific. It just has to be away from that forward posture and trying to get the open, upright posture.
Awesome.
All right. So thinking beyond that, thinking about the seated posture. Now I'm going to shift things around a little bit so you can get a better view of how my hips are when I'm sitting in a chair. Sometimes pointing a camera that's attached to a computer is a lot easier in theory than it is at home.
I think you're doing a great job. And this definitely helps.
All right. So thinking about your sitting posture, I've said a lot about having a good back posture. And so think about your hips. Your hips are right here, those hip bones. And when you sit, you can either curl this way, so your waist is kind of sunken in and your back is rounded. You can also arch the other way, so you have a very exaggerated curve. Now, neither of those are particularly good for posture for your back, or, neither of those are actually very sustainable. You want to find that spot in between where you're not slunched down and you're not overly arched. So one thing that you can do is see if you can find the ends of each motion, rocking back and forth, and then find that nice, tall, comfortable spot where maybe it takes a little work from your belly to keep it there, but your back feels overall pretty darn relaxed with it. And so that's kind of where you want to be. My legs are nice and 90 degrees from my body, though you can't see them. My feet are flat on the floor. My shoulders can be comfortably at my side, and I'm set up to being able to be at a computer pretty nicely. And so if you're sitting at a chair without a back, this becomes, I know, very tiring. So that's why it's important to have a comfortable, supportive chair when you're working. Now, if your chair isn't overly supportive, you can cheat. Get the best you can with your chair, and then put a pillow at that lower curve of your back so that I don't have to work as hard to keep the posture. Now, even if I get tired and I start slouching a little bit, there isn't much latitude for me to kind of slouch down. My back is supported, I'm comfortable, I can kind of just relax. And so that's the ideal. You want to be able to be relaxed with your body in a good position while you're working, where your shoulders can be back, your chest can be open.
Now, Erica, you may not know the answer, but like Amazon has a billion back pillows. Are there certain ones that you would recommend? Like, is is there like a normal back pillow, or do you, like, you know how there's like lumbar and thoracic, like what would
Honestly,
you recommend?
anything that advertises itself as a lumbar support is generally going to be helpful.
Okay, cool.
But mainly, honestly, if you were to grab a towel and roll it up behind your lower back, that would be perfect. That is all you would need.
Awesome.
All right. And now thinking of, let's get back to that position because I can show you some good stretches that work out for your lower body. So, sitting in my chair now and pulling the blanket that's a different color from my pants behind me, so maybe you can see my leg. You can, right, there you are. One good stretch for your lower back is to straighten out a leg in front of you, lean forward, and feel a hamstring stretch down here. So from the side, there, that's better. Straightening out a leg, sitting at the edge of your chair. You can lean forward, feel a little stretch at the back of your leg. This is one that I would hold for maybe 15 seconds. I would do that twice on each leg or maybe 3 times. The thing is, when you sit with your knees bent for a very long period of time, the hamstring muscles, which run under here, are always in a shortened position. So they end up feeling kind of tight. Now, if you happen to have arthritis in your knees, one of the things that you can do for that is before you sit up, straighten your leg and bend it a few times. So if you have a tendency to feel a little bit painful and stiff initially when you get up out of a chair, moving that joint helps lubricate the knees a bit so that those first few steps aren't quite as stiff and uncomfortable. Another good stretch.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
When you do that stretch, should you point or flex your toe?
You know, that's a good question. You can do it either way. If your foot is up, you'll feel it more in your calf. If your foot is pointed, you'll feel it more up in the hamstring. So you can really get it either way and get the stretch that you feel like you need at the time. Another good one that you can do is if you've been sitting and you feel like you're stiff, actually standing up now. All right. So if you found that you've been getting yourself slouched forward for a while, something that you can do here is just a little back extension. If you're flexible enough to get your hands behind your head, it's nice to have your chest open. If your arms aren't quite that flexible, you can just have your arms at your side or on your hips. With this then, you can stretch gently back. Now, if you stretch too far, you may feel some discomfort in your lower back. Don't go that far. Just tipping lightly back and forward. Getting a little movement in your back to counteract that slouching that people have a tendency to do. In the same way, if you are able to get your hands behind your head, adding the arms in to stretch open, well, you give yourself a stretch for your back is nice for that too. Now, any exercise, any motion where you open up your chest, even if your arms don't go up, if you just give yourself a good stretch open, that works nicely. Another one would be, oh, you're going to see my kitchen for a moment. The doorway stretch, where you sit with your hands on either end of the doorway. And if you can see me, gently stretch through. So basically what you're doing is putting your hands on either side of the door frame and taking a step through so that you can feel a stretch in your chest.
Should your elbows be bent, or can you do it arm straight too if that's uncomfortable?
You can do it either way. The main idea is to feel that stretch in your chest.
Perfect.
If your arms need to be straight, they can be straight. If your arms need to be lower, they can be lower. And again, sometimes people have pain and stiffness when they move in certain directions and go for a stretch. And in that case, just skip a stretch. It's no big deal. Another good one for the neck and the shoulders, we kind of addressed the sternocleidomastoid. But let's get this the other way. Let's get the upper track. My work from home room is tiny. All right, so with this one, tipping your head to the side and giving yourself a little stretch on the side of the neck works really nicely. It gets the muscle called the upper trapezius. You can hold that one. I like to hold this one a little bit shorter at a time, just at first, because some people, if they stretch their neck a little too hard, it's uncomfortable. Definitely this is one to make sure you get a gentle stretch, not pushing too hard. And then doing the other side. And so if you're going into this and you have pain, you can often either back off or even not use your hand at all and just tilt your head till you feel a gentle stretch. And so it can end up just looking like bringing your head side to side. Same with that. You can put your hands on your chest here. This one you can touch your teeth together. It's pretty much the only thing I'm going to tell you to touch your teeth. Otherwise, once your jaw relaxed, touch your teeth together. And tip back your head until you feel a gentle stretch. It'll be up here. And so there you can stretch out the muscles along the side of your neck, here in the front, kind of undoing the discomfort and tightness that can be caused by the tightness that happens when your head comes forward. All right, so thinking about desk setups and workplaces and aches and pains that you have a tendency to get. Now it's your turn. Everybody, feel free to jump in and throw out a question or an issue that you have at the desk.
So Erica, when I'm at home, I work for a laptop. I don't have a desktop. And I know in the slideshow, you suggested a keyboard, which is a good idea. Now, is there anything specific I should look for, like with a mouse in a mouse position, like for wrists, things like that?
That's a great question. It's very similar to how your hand should be for the keyboard itself.
Okay.
So basically, if you're holding a mouse in your hand, it should be nice and neutral. You wouldn't want one of these things or a curl. You'd want it nice and neutral so that you can move it around. You also want it also at that nice, relaxed 90-degree angle at the shoulder. And so that it's at the same level as your keyboard.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have anything that gets them? Well, it's definitely a smaller group than expected, so definitely was expecting more questions, but I have some quirks that I end up dealing with all the time myself. Because as you've noticed, my office setup is a little questionable.
It looks great.
It looks great. It's an old sunroom that converted into a spare room that converted into a home office, which there's like my fake mouse pad there was actually a brake pad that I picked up off the floor from fixing cars.
Oh my goodness.
So one thing that I run into is feeling like I don't have, my desk is really high, honestly. And so actually, when I'm sitting here and looking you at the desk, another thing that I have going on is there's a pillow on my chair. So
okay.
I put an extra fat pillow on my chair because my feet actually are kind of my knees are a little scrunched up in the chair I have, and my desk is high. And so in order for me to be tall enough that I'm at a comfortable position, I need to put a pillow on my seat and then put something under my feet so they're at the right height. So sometimes it takes a little bit of inventiveness. It's like, oh, well, if I sit up, if I put my feet at the right height, my chair's too low, or if I put the desk at the right height, my feet don't touch the floor. Fix everything. Get your place looking weird. Have your cereal boxes and books stacked up and have your computer sitting on that. Absolutely have, a piece of wood underneath your feet that you found that fit perfectly. Definitely do that. And as you go back to the office, kind of remember those things and look into with your HR, see if they have some sort of allowance or some sort of request system in order to be able to set up your work office in the ideal ways that we're talking about. Because oftentimes, if you say, you know what, this doesn't work for ergonomics, there's a lot of companies out there that you can definitely get a little bit of funds or a little bit of supplies for making your situation a little bit better, so you don't have to be quite as inventive. You can actually, get a nice product that does the job.
I know at some of the clinics I stopped by, Erica, a lot of people use like a ream of paper because that's something that a lot of offices have in their office. So they'll put their feet on a ream of paper to get them to that perfect foot distance, which I thought was very resourceful.
It's actually a really inventive idea. I like it.
Yeah.
And I saw Renee that was commenting about the pillow. That's one that my short self came up with years ago. I didn't realize it was ergonomics, but I learned. So that is really all I had prepared. If no one else had any questions or concerns, this is the time to jump in and talk.
What are your thoughts on sit-stand desks?
Actually, I really like them. They are really helpful. Basically, they do take away that I'm sitting for 8 hours throughout the day. It gives you that option to stand for a period of time. And I know you came in a little later. I'm going to quickly pull up a picture I had from my slides earlier that has just a note on using a sit to stand desk.
Now, if you had to give it a perfect time frame, Erica, would there be a good, you should sit for this long, you should stand for this long, you should sit for this long, you should stand for this long? Or is there no
there's no hard and fast. It's basically, if you find yourself, basically it's running trial and error. If you find yourself getting to that point where you're uncomfortable standing in about 20 minutes, I would be sitting at 15 minutes. So if you can handle, let's say 30 minutes in of sitting, you always feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then maybe at 45 minutes, you're in pain. Know where that is and stand up before that happens.
Okay.
Much like understanding your own postural habits. If you start to, let's say 2 hours into your workday is usually when you start getting sore. At 2 hours into your workday, look at how you generally sit and look at how what you're generally doing. If you have been that 2 hours into the workday, you find that by that time you're slouching, make sure that maybe 1 hour into your workday, you're making sure that you do something to prevent that 2 hours in habit. But yeah, looking back at the standing desks, love standing desks and sit to stand desks. The main thing is make sure it's the right height, because you want to be able to utilize the principles that we're talking about for sitting, where if the desk is too low, you'll end up having a curve in your back and hunching forward and putting a lot of effort in that you don't need to be. And if it's too high, you'll end up shrugging your shoulders up and doing weird things with your wrists. So you want to be able to have that same shoulders relaxed, head forward, wrists nice and neutral that you were able to have at a sitting desk when it's set up correctly.
Thank you. Sorry I came in late. I just got the link when I came in.
No worries. That's great.
Oh yeah, don't apologize.
No,
that's why we record it too.
You got the info.
Should your desk be like, what is the height that your desk should be from the ground based on your own height? Is there a standard for that?
There's no true standard. The main idea is you want the basic parts that you're working with to be at the right height. So you want, when you're thinking about sitting at the desk, you want your keyboard to be at the height where you can have your shoulders relaxed and type nicely. So if that's sitting on your desk needs to be at that level. If your monitors, at the right height where it's at eye level or slightly lower, and your shoulders are relaxed and your hands can be on the keyboard, either on a keyboard drawer or on the desk itself, then your desk height is just fine. It's basically no standard height. You just want the elements to be correct when put together. So if you can sit on your chair with your feet flat on the floor and your hands hit that keyboard at that sweet spot, the desk's at the right height. Otherwise, play around with it a little. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, good. All right then.
I was gonna say, if there aren't any other questions, Erica, if you guys have any, actually, let me do something real quick. I'm gonna try and pull up our location grid for you. Hold on one second, because I probably should have put that on your, but if you guys have any particular questions, we have locations all over Pennsylvania. We have over 70 locations, and Erica, Chris, I know you just joined. She's actually out of our Squirrel Hill office. So we have McCandless and Wexford. We have Squirrel Hill, Oakland. I'm trying to pull up. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to pull up our general flyer with our location grid. So hold on 1 second.
Thank you.
And have that ready to go. And then, Erica, I'm going to ask if I can share this real quick.
Absolutely.
Can everyone see this grid?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna zoom in best I can. So if you guys would like any of these phone numbers or anything, the easiest way to actually find our locations is if you go to our website, which is I think it's at the bottom of this, is www.upmc.com/4CRS. All of these locations will be listed. Generally speaking, all of these would be able to help you with physical therapy needs. Now, if you had some jaw pain, like Erica had mentioned, the best option is actually to see her in Squirrel Hill or Natalie Novak in the McCandless area. They take care of that TMD or TMJ pain. But all of these locations, like I said, we're all over north, south, east, and west. If you have any particular questions, again, my name is Catherine Mesmer, and I can give you guys my email. Please feel free to reach out. I can get you in the right location, get you the answers to the questions you guys may have. We do this kind of stuff for you. We just want to make sure that you're staying happy, healthy, and getting the best care you can. So does anybody have any questions on particular clinics that they'd like to see, or me to slow down if you need an address written?
I don't have a specific question about that, but I've always been wondering, now that so many people are working from home, is the need for this type of service going to explode? Because, you know, people are working at their dining room table and, you know, and all these bizarre setups.
I can tell you, there's so many people who say, oh, you know, gosh, I don't know what started out, but I started having pain around April of 2020. I'm just like, yeah, April of 2020. That's when everyone started working at their dining room tables, trying to wrangle children at the same time and all that. So absolutely, I've seen a lot of that.
And one of my goals actually as a marketing rep is to get in front of some of the larger employees and employers in Pittsburgh. So like I know PNC just went back to in the office. So switching from that home desk life to the office desk life is going to be a big difference. So getting in front of your employer. So if you guys work for an employer that you think this would be good information for your staff, please let us know. Erica is happy to share these slides or even schedule some type of in-service too, because the more they know about it's more being aware of how you sit and where you sit kind of thing too, because this is all stuff that you guys can do on your own. It's just knowing the material would be helpful. So if you guys have anyone in mind, or this is something that you'd like to share, please feel free to share this link once it's on the Cancer Caring website. I think this would be helpful for not just this particular group, but for a lot of groups in that home work balance life right now.
I'd like to see the slides. I'll share my email in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we can check. Absolutely.
Sounds like a plan.
Wonderful. Is there any other questions for us then, guys? Or I should say ladies, sorry.
I don't have any, but thank you very much for putting this program on.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for listening. I definitely enjoy talking. I actually am kind of passionate about ergonomics, despite the fact that, you know, my ergonomics in this room are terrible. But yeah, definitely it's something I care a lot about, and I'm so glad to be able to share it.
Awesome. And then Chris, what I'll do is I'll email you the slides, or even I'll send Erica your email. She can email you the slides, and then I'll have her, or I'll put both of our contacts on there. So if you have any additional questions or would like questions about something else, please feel free to email either of us back.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you again, guys, so much for all your help. I hope you guys have a fantastic night. Sit up nice and straight.
Take care. Well then.
Awesome. I think that went well.
Suddenly realizing how hard it is to show full body things in a small office.
Go ahead and stop the recording. Sorry, Erica.
Oops. Oops, no, not ending. Cancel. Stop recording. Okay.